I'm going to try to help anyone who's trying to remove a dash bezel on a 65 Chevelle. I'm assuming a 64 as well, although I've never seen one up close to know if there's much difference. But online, what little information there is, none of it really covers the hard parts of this job. Most make it seem like it's, once you get the wiper motor switch and the ignition out and the headlight switch out, this thing's just coming right out of the dash. And that's not even close to the truth. So I'm going to try and explain some of the tough spots you're going to run into. One is, if you got a real super sport, if you got an oil pressure gauge, you're going to have to undo that line before you budge anything. You'll have no room to move it more than a half an inch forward with that hard line back there. And that will require a 5/16, this little tiny, something like this, because you have no room back there. The other difficult spots, speedometer cable, which isn't terribly hard to get out. And I saw guys say, oh yeah, just unplug everything on the back side of it so you can just pull the whole thing out. Yeah, I don't think that's a great idea. That looks like a huge pain in the ass. Maybe if you could paint marker everything, and considering everything behind here is very old, it's not something I want to be pulling on. Most of those clips are kind of tight. So I thought the thing that made the most sense was to try and leave the cluster intact as much as possible and leave it in the dash. But you're also not going to get anything out of this car, no bezel at all. And I didn't see a soul. Talk about, you gotta, down here, there's two, you gotta loosen up steering column as much as possible to give yourself enough wiggle room, and I'm sure I'm gonna have to touch up the black on the column because it's unbelievably tight. The other thing is, what else? Good time to change your bulbs on the back of the display. I'm going to be working through that next. The other thing to be careful of is the turn signals. These little cheap paper tubes, they just have these green plastic discs laying on top of them. And they just fall right out. I couldn't find the one for a while. It just ended up, as soon as you start moving these things around. So they're going to go. I also have two connections that I didn't undo that were just up here. I'm not sure what they went to at some point in time, but this car has 38,000 original miles and hasn't been messed with very much. So on this cluster itself, there are four small, what size are they? 1/4 inch screws that you can remove so that way the bezel will detach. They're at the far corners. You've got it out far enough past the column. It's really not that hard to get to with an extension that length. And frankly, I think that'll be easier to deal with than unplugging everything to remove the cluster. There's not really any good reason to take it all out, in my opinion. And yeah, I'll show you a couple other things. On the back of the cluster, or bezel, of course this is upside down, you're going to have to bend this up to give it a little room after you get the screw out. And there's the four screws. Of course you got to transfer these little bits onto the back of the new one, which I got from Summit, and while I would say it looks okay, I wouldn't say I'm over impressed with it, but I don't even know if there's more than one kind of shitty place making these things now. And yeah, and then the things everyone else gets hung up on is like, man, I can't get the wiper motor switch out. Where's that set screw? It's right underneath it. It's right there, like on the outside of the bezel. The other thing is the ignition tumbler. You got to turn it all the way back to accessory. There's a tiny pinhole. You stick a paper clip in it, pushes a brass button, and Let's see if it's in here. Pushes the brass button in, lets you turn it even more counterclockwise, and then it just pops right out. I'm sure it's laying back there somewhere. Guys online in the forums seem to kind of cover that like it's no big deal, which it really isn't once you know how it works. But, yeah, there we go. But yeah, I'm sure I'll run into other issues in trying to get this thing back together. I'm curious to find out what no longer works correctly once it's all back in. Had I known it was this much of a job, I probably wouldn't even have bothered. The bezel looked faded, but it wasn't really bothering me. I just thought, when I looked around online, I thought, there's not anybody talking about this. You know, there's not any instructions that come with the kit, like they are worried about you not being able to put it in. There's not much on cars that I can't do, and this is not something I would recommend the average person just make an attempt at. You're going to be literally legs up, upside down, under the car, just to have a shot at getting this thing out. And I'm young enough that that's not a problem, but I would think for most guys, that's not something they're going to want to do. If you're a bigger dude, definitely not something you're going to want to do. This would be like the ideal job for like one of your kids to try and get their hands up in there. My arm's all cut up. I started this job a while ago, and I'm just coming back to it. But you're gonna shed some skin, and it's gonna piss you off for sure. So decide if it's worth it. The parts are cheap, but it's a decent amount of work. That's it.